After my rebirth, I deliberately avoided every opportunity to meet Gu Qian. When he said he was going home for the holiday, I told him I was staying on campus to study. When he brought Lu Xueqing and her child to live with him, I moved out on my own. When he decided to stay at school, I once again boarded a train to the Northwest alone. In my past life, I toiled away for him for most of my years, yet in my old age, even my own son was begging me to divorce him, just so that after I'm gone, I could finally let that pair of star-crossed lovers be together. No one knows that I have been reborn. Staring at the acceptance letter in front of me, I still couldn't quite believe it. Lin Sui, are you sure you won't reconsider? The conditions in the Northwest might be tough, but Northwestern Polytechnical University, from behind her desk, my former physics teacher, Qin Su, was still trying to persuade me. Unwilling to give up, seeing that familiar face again, I was on the verge of tears. In my past life, I loved physics, but few people believed a girl could excel at it. While everyone else thought girls couldn't master physics, she alone firmly believed they could. But in the end, I let her down, because after marrying Gu Qian, I became pregnant very quickly and consequently gave up on attending university. And now, I've been reborn to a time before my marriage to Gu Qian. At the thought of everything from my past life, I shook my head, fighting back the sting in my eyes. No. Teacher Qin, there's no need to think it over. She was about to try and persuade me further when she heard my resolute reply. I'll go. She hesitated again, saying, I heard your fiancé is staying at the university. If you go so far away for college, do you think he'll really wait for you? At the mention of Gu Qian, the image of his tall, upright figure from his youth flashed in my mind, only to be immediately clouded over by a shadow, recalling the events of my past life. I shook my head with a hint of self-mockery, but then I said with nonchalance, it's fine, teacher, free love is all the rage now. That arranged marriage from our childhood is just a relic of feudal society. It's not worth keeping. She must have heard the rumors too, for she stood up and gave my shoulder a reassuring pat. I'm relieved to hear you say that. A look of admiration flickered in her eyes as she encouraged me. Lin Sui, I look forward to the day you truly shine. I smiled and couldn't help but say, Professor, I think you might have forgotten the meaning behind NPU's most famous statue, too. Without a second thought, I changed my application to Northwestern Polytechnical University. Following the flow of the crowd, I made my way back to the apartment I currently shared with Gu Qian, relying on memory. From what I remembered, Gu Qian wouldn't be around for the next few days, barring any surprises, during this time. He was probably busy accompanying Lu Xueqing and her child back to their hometown for a visit. Pushing the door open and seeing the empty house, I let out a self-deprecating laugh and a sigh of relief at the same time. Otherwise, I'm not sure if the person I am now would have dragged him down with me. It took me quite a while to truly, deeply feel the reality of my rebirth. My fingers glide across the smooth wooden surface of the desk. There are no scratches yet, no messy scribbles or graffiti. At the corner of the desk sits only a stack of my review books and a jar of vanishing cream. Thinking of how I died in my past life, a cold smile touches my lips. Since he was so fond of Lu Xueqing and her son in our last life, this time, he can figure out his own reincarnation. 3. Who would have thought that in my previous life, I was literally driven to my grave by my own flesh and blood, in that past life, though the affair between Gu Qian and Lu Xueqing caused me immense pain. It was nothing compared to the agony of betrayal by the son I had raised with my own hands. I still vividly remember the fury I felt upon learning from an old friend that he had married Lu Xueqing's daughter behind my back. I couldn't help but tremble all over as I rushed to confront him, demanding why it had to be Lu Xueqing's daughter. He was well aware of what happened between Lu Xueqing and his father. He had once suffered because of Gu Qian's favoritism. How could he? 4. I can't accept that the child I raised with my own hands ended up being bewitched by that mother and daughter pair too. At first, Gu Yunyan was evasive, but when pushed to the brink, he shoved me aside and said, what's so bad about Aunt Xueqing? At the very least, she's more cultured than you and has a better understanding of how to live. Mom, can't you just let go? Dad suffered his whole life because of you. If it weren't for you, he should have been with Aunt Xueqing long ago. You two look completely mismatched in every way. Why can't you just let go? At that moment, I didn't know how to describe what I was feeling. I just felt as if all the blood in my body had frozen solid. My own son, the one I raised with my own hands, looks at me with disdain. In that moment, the pain in my heart was 10,000 times worse than the ache in my back. A lumbar disc herniation worn down by the relentless grind of life, even when it slammed against the corner of the table. And it was in that very moment that I truly understood what it means to have one's heart pierced by 1,000 arrows. 5. Indeed, Lu Xueqing has been elegantly sheltered by Gu Qian her entire life. Of course she understands living better than I do. When Gu Yunyan was born, Gu Qian happened to be on an overseas assignment, and he took Lu Xueqing and their daughter with him. Just as Gu Yunyan turned 3 and was ready for kindergarten, and I was planning to resume my studies. Gu Qian's father fell ill. Shortly after we had dealt with his father's funeral arrangements, Gu Qian's mother accidentally fell, leaving her paralyzed and bedridden. After my parents passed away, it was Mr. and Mrs. Gu who took me in and brought me back to the Gu family. They were very kind to me, so I put everything on hold once more and returned to my hometown with Gu Yunyan. And that stay ended up lasting another 10 years. 6. I slid to the floor, clutching my chest. I reached out, trying to grasp the door that Gu Yunyan had long since shut, but in the end, my gaze could only rest, futilely, on that shockingly withered and aged hand. Lu Xueqing was 5 years older than me, yet at that age, her fingers were still slender and delicate, painted with red nail polish, yet life had already worn me down to the point of resembling an old woman. I stared at that hand with bitter resentment, my eyes wide with the injustice of it all. My resentment must have been so profound that the heavens granted me this second chance. I stretched out my hand, looked at its still fair and smooth skin, and couldn't help but smile. He, Gu Yannian, wonders why I kept putting things off back then, with Gu Qian climbing the career ladder. I was left juggling his needs and caring for his mother, with no time for anything else. My studies and career were completely sidelined. What else could I have done but delay my own life? But I forgot that to love others, you must first love yourself. I had forgotten that a son, once grown, would not empathize with his mother. I was so terribly wrong. Fortunately, with this second chance at life, there is still time to set things right. This time, I refused to be shackled by those hollow moral obligations. 7. By the time Gu Qian returned, I had already taken care of most of my belongings. I packed my meager luggage and hid it, along with the admission notice, in the corner of the wardrobe. After tidying up the room, I started cooking. Just as the meal was ready, Gu Qian walked in with Lu Xueqing and her son. That smells amazing. Acting like the lady of the house, Lu Xueqing went straight to lift the lid off the pot on the stove. I quickly picked up the small pot, stepped past her to the door, and with a "here, boy" to call to Huang, I poured the entire pot of spare ribs into his bowl right in front of her. Ignoring the sudden change in Lu Xueqing's expression, I went ahead and served myself a bowl of noodles to eat. With memories from my past life, I naturally knew they were returning today, but in my past life, Gu Qian told me that Lu Xueqing was merely the widow of his comrade in arms. It was only at his fallen friend's request that he took extra care of her and her daughter. Although I had sensed something was off in my past life, I didn't dwell on it. I was also influenced by some comments, feeling a bit insecure about whether I was truly good enough for Gu Qian. He's handsome, driven, and even a military academy officer, while I was only with him because of our childhood betrothal. Before we got married, I seriously asked Gu Qian if he wanted to reconsider. Yet all he said was that there was nothing between him and Lu Xueqing, telling me not to overthink it. In this second life, I couldn't help but sneer as I lowered my head to eat my noodles. I wonder what his fallen comrade would think, if he knew from beyond the grave that Gu Qian had taken such intimate care of his widow. By the time Gu Qian emerged from the room, Lu Xueqing and her daughter had already put on a completely different face. Lu Xueqing's daughter stared at me with pleading eyes, then reached out to tug at Gu Qian's sleeve, whimpering pitifully, "Uncle Gu, I'm hungry." I slurped my noodles, completely ignoring her. Gu Qian frowned at me and demanded, "Didn't you make any food?" I looked up at him. There was no denying that the younger Gu Qian was still handsome, but after living through my past life, I no longer feel that old flutter in my heart when I look at him. I said coolly, "I made some, but I didn't know you'd be back, so I only made enough for myself." He glanced at the noodles in front of me, still frowning. "Didn't I just smell you stewing some bones?" I kept my head down, eating my noodles, and replied calmly, "That's postpartum stew for Da Huang." Gu Qian's brow furrowed deeply. Without waiting for him to say another word, I picked up my empty bowl, went to the sink, and quickly washed it. When I came back out, I heard Lu Xueqing saying to Gu Qian, "A whole pot of ribs. Sister-in-law is quite generous to the dog." I dried my hands with a towel and replied, "What can I do? Big Yellow is so well behaved. At least he knows to be grateful after getting a good meal." Ignoring the change in Lu Xueqing's expression, I pushed open the door to my room, picked up the cold cream from the table, and slathered a thick layer onto my hands. There's no way I should age faster than Lu Xueqing. In this life, no one will ever treat me like a maid again. 8. Outside the door, I heard Gu Qian comforting Lu Xueqing and her daughter. He pushed the door open and came in. Frowning, he said, Lin Sui, could you go and make something else to eat? The child is hungry, and so am I sneered. If the child is hungry, she should go to her mother. She has a mother, doesn't she? I snapped impatiently. I've got things to do at school. If you're hungry, figure it out yourself. With that, I grabbed a jacket, stepped past him, and left without a backward glance. 9. I couldn't be bothered with what they were up to. I really did have things to take care of. While sorting through my belongings these past couple of days, I've also been taking stock of my current assets. I think I understand the choice Gu Yuanian made in our previous life. It's simple, really. The resources I could offer just weren't substantial enough. When he was young and needed my care, he was somewhat affectionate towards me, but if I had thought about it carefully, I would have realized he only acted especially sweet whenever Gu Qian came home. I just didn't have the time or energy to dwell on it back then. Anyone who has personally cared for a bedridden elderly person knows how utterly draining those days are. Mr. and Mrs. Gu had already drained away the better part of my youth. 10. I arrived at the place where I had arranged to meet Ning Fei. I'm a bit tight on cash right now, so I'm thinking of finding a tutoring job. As it happened, one of Ning Fei's cousins was also preparing for the college entrance exam next year, so she asked me to tutor him. He was an educated youth who had been sent to the countryside and had only recently returned to the city. Looking at the tall, handsome young man beside Ning Fei, I felt a vague sense of familiarity, but I simply couldn't recall where I might have seen him before. After finalizing the tutoring schedule with Xia Mingqing, I made another trip to the department store. I still need to make a trip back to my hometown to formally dissolve my engagement to Gu Qian. While free love is becoming more common these days, it's still not the same as in later generations. Besides, my engagement to Gu Qian was formalized with a compatibility reading of our birth characters and an exchange of betrothal tokens. I've been living with the Gu family for years now, and the whole village has long considered me one of them. I don't want to leave any trouble for the future. 11. When I returned to the apartment I shared with Gu Qian, Lu Xueqing and her son had already left. Gu Qian frowned slightly upon seeing me return laden with bags and packages. Are you going back to your hometown? He asked. I gave a non-committal wondering if I should just come out and tell him about breaking off the engagement, but then I heard him speak first. That's just as well. Xueqing and the others are being moved to a new dormitory soon. It's not easy for her to move back and forth alone with the child. I was actually thinking of asking you if we could clear out your room for them to stay in temporarily. I was taken aback for a moment and said nothing. He called it a discussion, but last time I objected, didn't he still end up bringing that person home anyway? He even scattered my belongings all over the floor. Even the family heirloom jade pendant my parents left me went missing. When I grew frantic and confronted him, he shielded the sobbing Lu Xueqing and snapped, whose fault is it for not putting things away properly? But I had stored it carefully in the wardrobe. Even my clothes were strewn across the floor. At that moment, I was genuinely getting cold feet about the marriage, but after meeting Gu Qian's parents, I found myself at a loss for words. They sincerely wished for me and Gu Qian to have a harmonious and happy life together. I remained silent. But Gu Qian kept rambling on, and I heard him once again suggest postponing the wedding. I nodded without a moment's hesitation and agreed. All right. This time, it was Gu Qian who hesitated. He explained, that's not what I meant. I meant I wanted to wait until my position at the university was secure before submitting the marriage report to the higher-ups. I just gave a faint ahm in response and went to boil water to wash my feet. Gu Qian opened his mouth, then followed me into the kitchen and said, how about we pick a date later in the year, or maybe just during the National Day holiday? That should be. I cut him off by putting the kettle on the stove and saying, we'll talk about it when the time comes. 12. It was the same in my past life, and back then, I was still somewhat worried, but in this new life, I truly don't care at all anymore. In fact, I even feel a faint sense of happiness. I plan to keep the matter of breaking off the engagement from him for now, at least until I leave this place for the Northwest. I don't want any unnecessary complications. After washing up, I returned to my room to sleep and had a restful night. Gu Qian watched the woman who remained eerily calm, sensing something was fundamentally different about her. An inexplicable thread of panic began to coil in the pit of his stomach. Early the next morning, I caught the first available bus back to the village. Gu's father and mother were delighted to see me, but fell into an uncharacteristic silence upon hearing I wanted to call off the engagement. Gu's father sat to the side, smoking a pipe of strong tobacco. His usually amiable face darkened with anger as he turned to me and said, "Girl, I know that brat Guqian is the one at fault. You wait right here. I'm going to go give that boy a piece of my mind." I reached out to stop him. Mrs. Gu, wiping a tear from her eye as she looked at me, came over and held his arm, saying, "Let it go, old man. Young people these days aren't like we were back then. Forcing them to marry might just end up hurting the girl instead." See, they always managed to soften my heart, but I truly don't want to walk down the same worn path as my last life again, so I dropped to my knees before them with a thud, pleading through tears, "Mom, Dad, even without this marriage, you have been like parents to me, so please, grant me this wish." With a stooped back, Mr. Gu called for the village chief and, in his presence, dissolved the engagement between me and Guqian. Afterwards, Mrs. Gu took my hand and said, "My dear child, I know you've been wronged." I shook my head. Perhaps Guqian and I were never meant to be from the start, but as I looked at Gu's parents before me, I gradually found peace with certain things. 13. After calling off the engagement and returning home, I never went back to Guqian's place. That place was originally allocated to him by his work unit. Lu Xueqing and her child have probably moved in by now. I found myself a cheaper guest house, which happened to be quite close to Xia Mingqing's place. I threaded the jade pendant, which I had lost and found again, onto a cord and hung it around my neck. It served as a constant reminder that everything was different now. In this life, there would be no Guqian, and certainly no Gu Yunyan. I will make sure I live a wonderful life. As for how Guqian finally found out about me breaking off the engagement, I couldn't care less. By the time he rushed over, a month had already passed and I was boarding the train to the northwest. I paid no mind to Guqian's look of helpless fury outside the train window. I waved goodbye to Xia Mingqing from the train window, and as the train pulled away, he gradually disappeared into the distance. 14. Communication in this era is not as developed as it will be in future times. More than a month after I arrived at Northwestern Polytechnical University, I received a letter from Guqian. In his letter, he demanded to know why I was breaking off the engagement, adding that if I just replied, he could submit the marriage application immediately. I paid it no mind. Not long after, Guqian's second letter arrived. This time, he threatened me in the letter, telling me not to regret it. If I missed this chance, there would be no possibility for us ever again. I scoffed. That was exactly what I wanted. I ignored that letter as well. The coursework at NPU wasn't exactly overwhelming, but it was by no means easy, especially after being out of the loop for so long in my past life. My days were spent either in class or holed up in the library or lab. I immersed myself in learning like a sponge, and it left me feeling more fulfilled than ever before. In the second year, Xia Mingqing arrived. He was studying geological exploration and had gone missing during a field assignment. When the news reached the school, I suddenly remembered who he was. In my past life, after marrying Guqian, I always regretted not being able to attend Northwestern Polytechnical University. Once, while passing a newsstand, the sight of the words Northwestern Polytechnical University compelled me to buy a newspaper on a strange impulse. That very newspaper carried a report about the perilous situation faced by Xia Mingqing's exploration team. My heart pounded wildly, and without a moment's hesitation, I went to find the search and rescue team. I told them everything I knew and provided them with my newly developed detector. I knew there was something wrong with that magnetic field. Ordinary detectors were completely useless. Afterwards, everyone in Xia Mingqing's team was very grateful to me, as my detector had proven effective. The exploration team, which had lost several core members in the previous timeline, returned safely this time and brought back a crucial piece of information. This news played a significant role in advancing our space program, while also breaking the West's stranglehold on us in this area. 15. After graduating, I naturally applied for graduate studies at my alma mater and began participating in some confidential national projects. I rarely went back. Guqian married Lu Xueqing just 6 months after I left. Rumor has it they were reported for having an improper affair. Lu Xueqing lost her job at the cultural troupe, and Guqian was forced to marry her. I didn't care what happened to them. Guqian wrote me many letters afterward, but I never replied to a single one, except for the letter informing me of his father's illness, when Gu's father passed away, I took leave and went back. They had been married for several years by then, and Lu Xueqing had even borne Gu Qian a son, named Gu Yaozu. Gu Qian's parents had never liked her, thinking their disdain stemmed from a preference for sons over daughters. She went to great lengths to give birth to Gu Yaozu. On my way home, I also ran into Lu Xueqing's daughter from her previous marriage, Chen Manin, who once carried herself with the same airs as her mother and at least used to be neat and pretty. Now looked disheveled and sullen-eyed. I glanced at Gu Yaozu, cradled in Lu Xueqing's arms, and instantly understood the situation. Ignoring Lu Xueqing's veiled provocation and showboating, I helped the grief-stricken Mrs. Gu back to her room, fearing she might meet with an accident like in my previous life. I stayed by her side almost constantly during this time, 16, ever since his return. Gu Qian has been inexplicably attentive towards me. He had even written to me, saying he would be transferred here too, and asked me to wait for him. But not long after, he married Lu Xueqing. For some reason in this life, his career has stalled and he hasn't been able to climb the ranks. I paid him no mind, preoccupied instead with planning the next steps for Gu's mother. My plan is to have her accompany me to the northwest. Over the years, I've always taken precautions, and Father Gu didn't end up bedridden for years like in my previous life. But he still couldn't make it past this age. I'm worried that Mother Gu might also have an accident, so I'm thinking of taking her with me. All these years, we've been as close as mother and daughter, even if not by blood. From Gu Qian's room next door came the sounds of his argument with Lu Xueqing. Mother Gu wearily patted my hand and said, "I know what you're thinking, dear, but I can't go with you. I can't bear to leave your father." She continued, "Don't you worry about me. I can still get around just fine, and I'm surrounded by familiar faces here. I have no desire to go somewhere completely new and strange." I wanted to try and persuade her further, but she patted my hand to stop me and said, "Go on, get some sleep." I had no choice but to leave for the time being. The next day, Lu Xueqing looked at me with nothing but contempt and disapproval. I couldn't be bothered with her. After learning of Mrs. Gu's decision, I went to find an auntie she was close with. I asked her to keep an extra eye on things, to call or write to me if anything came up, and promised to send them money every month. Once Mr. Gu's funeral arrangements were complete, I left once again. 17. I saw Gu Yunyan again at his mother's funeral. Oh, he goes by a different name now. Gu Yaozu, holding my daughter with Xia Mingqing's hand. I watched coldly as the lovers who were once madly devoted to each other in our past life now stood as siblings who seemed to loathe each other's very existence in this one. It really goes to show, lovers in one life, siblings in the next. Xia Liunian had never witnessed such a chaotic family dynamic before. She stared, dumbfounded, at the two people locked in a vicious, life-or-death struggle. Inside the house, Gu Qian and Lu Xueqing were also engaged in a fierce, no-holds-barred argument. The elegant noblewoman from her past life had now descended into a hysterical shrew. I took my daughter's hand and, with a cold expression, finished handling the funeral arrangements for Gu's mother. Over the years, I've heard plenty about Gu Qian and Lu Xueqing from others. It turns out the one who reported them back then was Lu Xueqing herself. She had seen the letter where Gu Qian said he was coming to find me. Fearing he would run away, she staged that whole drama herself. While she got what she wanted in the end, that letter clearly became a thorn in her side, so, fearing she couldn't hold on to Gu Qian, she sabotaged every one of his promotions or transfers. That's precisely why Gu Qian has been stuck in the same place all these years. Later, when she saw people who were once beneath them getting promoted, she began to look down on Gu Qian's lack of ambition, feeling he couldn't provide her with a better life, which led to constant friction between them. I have no interest in meddling in their affairs. After the funeral for Gu's mother, my daughter Xia Liunian and I prepared to return home. We had been building our lives in the northwest for years, and Xia Mingqing's parents had long since moved there with us. Gu Yaozu came to see me the night before our departure. He was in a highly agitated state, desperate to prove he was my son. Xia Liunian was so baffled by the bizarre rambling that he began to question the speaker's sanity, and even kindly suggested he see a psychiatrist. In a fit of rage, he tried to shove my daughter. I glared at him coldly and threw him out. Still refusing to give up, he pleaded, Mom, you have to believe me. I was meant to be your son. I just don't know how I ended up being born to Lu Xueqing in this life. And that bitch Chen Manin, she's just like her mother, a loose, promiscuous slut. In our past life, she also." I pushed Xia Liunian's head back inside, shut the door, and stared at him coldly. Xiaolian had no idea what he was talking about, but I understood perfectly. I said coldly, "Didn't you just adore Lu Xueqing's mother? Now your mother-in-law is literally your mother. What's there to be unhappy about?" Gu Yuanyan stared at me, wide-eyed. Then, his face went deathly pale. 18. How could I not recognize that Gu Yaozu is Gu Yunyan? Although he wasn't born from my womb in this life, I was the one who raised him single-handedly in the last one. At first, I didn't believe such a coincidence was possible, but his deliberate attentiveness towards me these past few days, coupled with his inexplicable jealousy towards Xiaolian, has given me more than a few suspicions. So how did you figure it out later? I like the flavor of ginger in my food, but I can't stand actually biting into a piece, so I always pick the ginger out first. Yet Gu Qian, who had lived with me for years, never noticed this habit, while Gu Yaozu, who had only seen me a handful of times since his return, picked up on it immediately. The moment he eagerly placed a plate of specially selected dishes before me, I understood. Even though I didn't marry Gu Qian in this life, he still came. Even the mole on the web of his left hand was exactly the same as in the previous life. I found it rather amusing, but I didn't call him out on it. I just watched his performance with a cold eye. In his past life, he was desperate to have Lu Xueqing as his mother, yet now, in this life, when she actually is his mother, he's found all sorts of reasons to be dissatisfied. Instead, he started to feel nostalgic for me, his mother. I listened to his various confessions with indifference, thinking to myself that this father and son were truly alike, both absolute egoists. Honestly, I had it all figured out in my past life. Did Gu Qian really love Lu Xueqing that much? I highly doubt it. He was just unwilling to let go of me, his free live-in maid, while still clinging to his romantic fantasies. I might have had genuine feelings for him at the start, but later on, it probably boiled down to a sense of gratitude towards his parents and consideration for Gu Yunyan. Of course, there's still a lot of unwillingness to accept it, but sunk costs should never factor into major decisions, and there's more than one way to repay a debt of gratitude. The tragedy of my past life was also due to my own stubborn refusal to change. 19. I slipped away quietly with Xiaolian without saying goodbye to anyone. In this life, I did not marry Gu Qian as Gu's father and mother had hoped, yet in this lifetime, I still looked after Gu's parents. They did not linger on sickbeds for years before passing. Under my deliberate care, they at least departed with dignity in this life. Gu Yaozu wrote me many more letters afterwards, but I ignored them all. The nature of my work also made it impossible for him to find me. I don't care how he is now. Everything from my past life has long since faded like a fleeting dream. Now, I have long since woken from that dream. 20. It was several more years before I heard any news of Gu Qian and his son again. As Mr. and Mrs. Xie grew older, they too began to yearn for their hometown. So, during the spring festival holiday, we all took the opportunity to travel back together. I heard about Gu Yaozu's story from an old neighbor lady when I went to pay respects at his parents' graves. He accidentally killed Gu Manin, who was his wife in a past life, but in this life, she was his half-sister, sharing the same mother. After he was sentenced, Gu Qian, perhaps from the shock, suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and was left paralyzed. When I went to visit Gu Qian, I saw Lu Xueqing slapping him across the face, cursing him for ruining her entire life. I blinked, looking at their graying hair, wondering if this counted as giving them their happy ending. I set down the gift and turned to leave without another word. Perfect. Now no one can say I didn't help those star-crossed lovers find their happiness. The end. Story 2. At the wedding, the green tea girl I had once helped publicly exposed my crimes in front of everyone. She slandered me, saying that I had humiliated her in every possible way and even tried to control her physically. She is a hypocritical scoundrel. My fiancé, whom I had trusted the most, also accused me with a pained expression. I never thought you were such a person. The green tea girl was live streaming on the spot, with tears in her eyes and a smile on her face. She said amidst my shock and bewilderment, "I'm revealing this today in the hope that thousands and thousands of girls can be as brave as I am and stand up against authoritarianism." This speech, which seemed like that of a strong female protagonist, instantly gained her countless followers. However, I was stabbed to death by some extreme fans. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back at the moment when my fiancé wanted to ask my lawyer friend to help the green tea girl. I nodded readily. Sure, I must help. The stage is already set. If I don't step onto it, how can the play continue? 1. In my previous life, I died at the wedding that I thought would be the happiest moment of my life. When the MC invited the bridesmaids to send their blessings, Song Chuxia, who was one of the bridesmaids, directly projected the screen and made public the conversations I had with her. Moreover, she cut out the parts that were favorable to me and only showed the conversations that were disadvantageous to me. Xia Heng immediately branded me as a disgrace on the spot. I will definitely not marry such a person. Song Chuxia sobbed and questioned me. Pei Ku, you're jealous of the friendship between me and Xia Heng as classmates. You keep harassing me, carry out PUA on me, and even try to arrange people to control my movements. What goes around comes around. I will expose your true face to everyone. Then, suddenly, a person rushed onto the stage and stabbed at me with a knife. I dodged in a hurry, but was pushed forward by a force. When I turned around, I only saw Song Chuxia retracting her hand. However, her movement was so fast that no one noticed it. At first, Xia Heng was stunned for a moment, but as soon as Song Chuxia grabbed him and threw herself into his arms, crying that she was scared, he forgot about me, his fiancée, and let me be stabbed to death. It hurt so much. With my last bit of strength, I picked up the knife on the ground and rushed over, stabbing it into Xia Heng's chest, and before they could react, I stabbed him several more times. Let's die together, you scumbag. The reason I stabbed Xia Heng was just that he happened to be beside me at that time. It was actually a bit too lenient for Song Chuxia. When I opened my eyes, I was sitting in Xia Heng's office, with Xia Heng and Song Chuxia sitting opposite me. I immediately realized that I had returned to the time when I first got involved in this doomed relationship in my previous life. At this moment, the two people opposite were trying to use my connections to help Song Chuxia's father solve a troublesome matter. Hearing that I readily agreed to help, Xia Heng was not surprised at all. After all, I had always put his needs first. Song Chuxia was a bit overjoyed. That's great, thank you, Kiki, you're so lucky to have such a good husband like Xia Heng. If it weren't for him this time, I wouldn't know what to do. In my previous life, why didn't I notice this strong green tea flavor in her words? So I put my hands together and said piously, since Xia Heng is enough, then I will pray for you. Song Chuxia was stunned. What are you talking nonsense about? Didn't we talk about asking you to find lawyer Zhang Yang? I looked at the two of them and blinked. Of course not. Who do you think you are? Zhang Yang is a top lawyer in the country. The cases he takes on have never been lost. If we weren't college classmates, Xia Heng wouldn't have thought of asking me to jump the queue, because the cases in Zhang Yang's hands are already scheduled until next year. Song Chuxia stood up all of a sudden. Pei Ku, you're playing tricks on me. I looked at her disdainfully. Song Chuxia, in what capacity are you questioning me? You're just Xia Heng's high school classmate. Originally, out of consideration for him, I could have passed on a message for you. Now, forget it. Song Chuxia was furious. Without Xia Heng, who do you think you are? What right do you have to show off in front of me here? Do you believe that I'll go out and say that you're bullying me with your power? I rushed over and directly slapped her twice, one on each side of her face. I'm telling you, this is what it means to bully people with power. Song Chuxia was completely stunned. It was only after I finished slapping her that she reacted and pounced on me with a scream, trying to fight back. Xia Heng quickly reached out and grabbed her waist to stop her. Chuxia, calm down, there's still the matter of the lawyer. Song Chuxia stopped as if struck by lightning. She was filled with grief and indignation, but she couldn't do anything to me. In the end, ignoring Xia Heng's comfort, she covered her face and ran out. Xia Heng quickly followed her out. I sat on the sofa and waited, as steady as a mountain. When you're asking for help, you should have the attitude of someone asking for help. Moreover, having been reborn, I don't care about your face or dignity. The most important thing is that my mammary glands stay unblocked. Song Chuxia's case is neither too difficult nor too easy. Her father trusted others too easily and attracted a lot of people to invest in the project. He even overestimated his ability and became a guarantor. As a result, when those people ran away with the money, as the guarantor, he was immediately burdened with tens of millions of yuan in debt. In my previous life, because of a word from Xia Heng, I found Zhang Yang. Out of consideration for me, Zhang Yang used all of his connections. In the end, not only did he find the scammer, but he also helped Song Chuxia's father recover the investment money. I was involved in this case throughout the whole process, and I even paid the lawyer's fees. In my previous life, I never told them about this. They just thought that they had easily hired a top lawyer in the industry and casually solved this troublesome matter. I just didn't expect that my sincere efforts would raise these two heartless people. At that time, Zhang Yang told me a lot of precautions that required San Chuxia and her father to cooperate with, including what to say and what not to do. I helped convey these requirements, but unexpectedly, they became the evidence for her to frame me. This time, I won't get involved in their matter anymore. I want to see how San Chuxia can turn the tables on this, too. It took Xia Heng a long time to come back. He hesitated for a moment and then said, Kiki, Chuxia was just too anxious and said things without thinking. You've always been very kind-hearted. Please help her. She's really pitiful. Is she pitiful? Aren't those families who were deceived by the scammer and her father and lured into the partnership pitiful? Whenever it came to San Chuxia, Xia Heng would unconditionally take her side. Why did I always think that this was just normal classmates' affection before? Could a high school classmate who graduated many years ago and who seemed to have barely said a few words to him make him give his heart and soul like this? I didn't dare to look up at Xia Heng, for fear that the hatred in my eyes would be noticed by him too early. After all, the company will go public in a month. With the shares I hold, I will soon become a multi-millionaire. I deliberately softened my tone and said with a hint of grievance, I was just too angry. I'm not the kind of person who would turn a blind eye to someone in need. Moreover, you know Zhang Yang's rules. I was just joking when I said I would pray for her. How could she say such things to me? It's too much. After hearing what I said, Xia Heng could only say reluctantly, she really shouldn't have said that. She was just too anxious. You can help make the connection first, and we'll see about other things later. I nodded readily. It's just about saying a few words. Who cares what I say? Just as I was about to leave, Xia Heng called me back again. Ms. Pei, wait a moment. I turned around in confusion. Mr. Xia, is there anything else? We had once agreed to conduct business affairs in the company in a formal manner, so when it came to company matters, we would directly address each other by our positions. Xia Heng motioned for me to sit down again, and then he took out an agreement to give up the original shares. I carefully read through the agreement. The company would buy back the original shares in my hands at 1.5 times the estimated listing price and also bear the cost of my purchase of the original shares. Calculated, it could give me 5 million yuan. This was indeed a very generous condition. If I didn't know that the company's stock price would soar after going public and that the value of the shares in my hands would be far more than 5 million yuan, I might have agreed. It seemed that he wanted to kick me out of the company. I looked up. Mr. Xia, what is this? Xia Heng was very cautious. Ms. Pei, considering our relationship, I think it would be more appropriate for you not to hold the company's shares in the future. I remained silent. What kind of nonsense was this? Xia Heng licked his lips and continued. Ms. Pei, think about it. So many couples start a company together, but in the end, not only does the company go bankrupt, but the family also falls apart. I'm doing this for our future. I thought for a moment. Then there's no problem. I'll just keep the shares and not participate in the company's operation and management. I'll step back and stay behind the scenes. Once the company goes public, I'll sell the shares. You can do whatever you want. I won't work for you anymore. I guess Xia Heng didn't expect that I wouldn't take the bait even with such a good condition. Ms. Pei, you're the vice president of our company. I understand your feelings, but I still think you should prioritize the family. What's more, we're family. We share weal and woe. It's more beneficial for the company's development if the shares are all concentrated in my hands. I didn't respond. I just kept my head down and remained silent, indicating my refusal. Xia Heng gritted his teeth and said reluctantly, looking a bit pained, well, considering that you're a founding member of the company has decided to buy back the original shares in your hands at a total price of 10 million yuan and transfer the money to your account in one lump sum. What do you think, Ms. Pei? Even if the company goes public, you might not earn as much as you can get now. I knew this was already his limit. Moreover, with his attitude, I didn't want to stay here any longer, so I looked up with a sad expression. Actually, I really have deep feelings for the company, but since you're thinking so much about our future, I have to accept it. After all, my future is also yours. Xia Heng quickly asked his secretary to draw up a new agreement and asked me to sign it. The whole process took less than 10 minutes. After seeing the information about the money arriving in my bank card, I was ready to leave. Xia Heng called me back again. I looked at another agreement in front of me. It was an agreement to terminate the labor contract and also included a 2N compensation for me. This eagerness to kick me out of the company wouldn't have happened at this time in my previous life. After all, at this moment, I was still a senior employee of the company and in control of most of the company's business. Laying me off was equivalent to cutting off the main artery. Unless he was so confident that he didn't care about my leaving at all, I belatedly realized that Xiaheng might have been reborn too. After all, only a reborn Xiaheng could act with such confidence. It seemed that I stabbed him quite accurately at that time and didn't leave him any chance to survive. However, this time I was really confused. What deep hatred did we have that he needed to drive me to the brink of despair like this? If we really had to look into it, it should be me who had the hatred. 3. Xiaheng and I used to be comrades with a tacit understanding of cooperation. When the company was first established, I was the first employee of the company. Starting as an assistant, I also took on administrative and personnel tasks. Later, I participated in product testing work. Later, when there was a shortage of developers, I taught myself the relevant courses and started to write code and do development clumsily. Starting from the front end and then moving on to full-stack development, as the company's products gradually got on track, Xiaheng transferred me to the marketing department to expand the market. I led the people in the marketing department to take on one project after another bit by bit. I had put in so much effort to get to where I am today, and everything I have now is what I deserve. Now, as the vice president, I have also received the original shares that I deserve. Just waiting for the company to go public so that I can finally have a good life. However, on the eve of the company's listing, Xiaheng asked me to sign an agreement to give up my original shares. Although he gave me a generous compensation, we both knew that this amount of money could never compare to the soaring market value of the company after it went public. I thought that was the end of it, but he actually wanted me to resign. Xiaheng finally seemed a bit guilty, his eyes were wandering. And he didn't dare to look me in the eye. Pei-ku, after all, the price at which the company bought back your shares this time is much higher than the estimated price. To avoid the discussions of other shareholders, I suggest that you resign. Don't worry, the company will give you all the compensation you deserve. I smiled self-deprecatingly. I understand, Mr. Xia. I request that the compensation for me be transferred to my account immediately in one lump sum today, if that's possible. I'll sign right away, Xiaheng agreed. In the end, the two of us put on a show of relieving someone of their military power over a cup of wine in front of his office door. We shook hands with smiles on our faces, gave each other a brief and polite hug, and finally said goodbye reluctantly. However, the company hasn't gone public yet. At this time, the Zhao Kuanin is not yet the Emperor Taizu of Song. And I'm not the sworn brother, Shoshin either. It's really disgusting. Everyone looked at me in shock as I packed up the things on my desk and said goodbye to them one by one. I just said that there were some family matters. Although Mr. Xia was magnanimous enough to allow me to take a long leave of absence, I couldn't bear to delay the company's business, so I volunteered to resign. Finally, I left the company amidst everyone's regret. I had a lot of things, but I didn't plan to keep most of them. In the end, I only took away some of the things I used frequently. And the more than 10 million yuan in my bank card, which felt so cold, compared with the tens of millions of yuan I had in my previous life, this was of course not enough. However, every minute and every second I spent with Xiaheng made me feel disgusted. Even if he hadn't done this today, I would have found a way to leave. I just didn't expect that he would take action first. I don't know when Xiaheng was reborn, but he didn't show any signs before. And now he suddenly wants to kick me out of the company. Could it be that he was just reborn? He was so eager. The only person I could think of was Song Chuxia. I'd also attended several of Xiaheng's high school classmates' gatherings. Xiaheng attended every year, and he even organized them out of his own pocket many times. I used to joke with him that after graduating for so many years, his feelings for his high school classmates were still so deep. And I wondered if there was a white moonlight among them. Xiaheng had a serious expression and told me not to say such things anymore. He said that no one could doubt his feelings for me. Among the few times I attended, Song Chuxia was always there. Song Chuxia originally came from a wealthy family. However, in recent years, her father had been deceived by some scammers who promised quick money and fell into their trap. Not only did her own family go bankrupt, but it also dragged down her relatives and friends, causing them to lose everything. And her father himself also carried a huge amount of debt. Song Chuxia was undoubtedly beautiful, like a delicate flower on the verge of withering. Sitting there with a slight frown, she evoked pity and affection. It wasn't until much later that I learned Song Chuxia came from a well-off family and had a cheerful personality. She treated Xiaheng, who came from a single-parent family at that time, equally and liked to include him in everything she did. This became a ray of light during Xia Heng's sensitive and vulnerable high school years. That's why, in his previous life, he could push me into the abyss together with Song Chuxia. The reason he pursued me was merely that I had worked with him for many years and was an excellent assistant, both in business and in life. What's more, after the company went public, I held a large amount of the company's equity. And he even made me the legal representative of the company. Marrying me was to maximize his interests. I was so stupid that I actually thought he had real feelings for me. After we got together, I obeyed him in everything and gave him my wholehearted devotion. When Xia Heng proposed helping Song Chuxia, I agreed without hesitation and even took the initiative to introduce my lawyer friend to assist her. Song Chuxia knew all this. I never expected that my kindness would be repaid with ingratitude. Just thinking about what I did in my previous life makes me want to slap myself. I was incredibly stupid, for, when I told Zhang Yan the news of my departure, he looked relieved. "You've finally come to your senses." My eyes welled up with tears. During the year I was with Xia Heng, I treated him like a god. After all, starting my career under such a leader, I grew rapidly. We had been through hardships together, and he even took the initiative to pursue me after achieving success. Although it was just a simple be with me, I was once naive and gave him my sincere love, taking meticulous care of him. I loved him so much, looking up to him, and I wished I could tell the whole world, but that me from the previous life has already died. In this life, I will make them pay the price they deserve. Song Chuxia remained quiet for a long time. And even Xia Heng behaved himself. I didn't even need to ask around. News came to me on its own. It turned out that recently, they had been blocked at their doorstep by debt collectors and didn't dare to go out at all. Song Chuxia had always acted like a spoiled young lady. Now, being pushed to such a state, she no longer had the nerve to show off in front of me. Currently, Zhang Yang was her only hope. But since I had clearly refused her last time, she had to carefully plan to achieve her goal. I waited patiently, and I didn't have to wait long. At the anniversary celebration of Zhang Yang's law firm, celebrities from all walks of life were invited. As the former vice president of the company, I had long received the invitation. Even though I had left the company, I was still Zhang Yang's friend, so I definitely had to attend to celebrate. As a well-known law firm in the industry, the anniversary celebration was grand. I arrived at the banquet hall early to expand my network. Xia Heng and Song Chuxia arrived together. Although he was my boyfriend, we hadn't contacted each other since I left the company last time. Their target was obvious. They headed straight for Zhang Yang. I just stood there, holding a wine glass, watching from a distance. After a brief conversation, Zhang Yang politely nodded and turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Song Chuxia reached out to stop him and said something to him. Then Zhang Yang looked at me in surprise. I put down my wine glass and walked over. "What's the matter, Mr. Lawyer?" Zhang Yang looked at me somewhat helplessly. "Miss Song said she wanted to tell me something about you that I didn't know. Is there anything you're hiding from me?" I looked at Zhang Yang innocently. "I don't think so. With our relationship, does Miss Song need to tell you anything?" Xia Heng watched coldly as Zhang Yang and I talked back and forth. He said, "Kiki, don't forget that I'm your boyfriend. You're flirting with Zhang Yang here. Do you even care about me?" He didn't lower his voice when he spoke. Both of them were outstanding figures in the industry, and today was Zhang Yang's event. As the vice president of the company, I knew many people. All of a sudden, everyone's attention in the hall was drawn. I could even imagine the front page headlines tomorrow. "Xia Heng, if we don't contact each other for 3 days, it's considered a breakup." When you were busy running around for Miss Song, did you completely forget that we haven't contacted each other for almost a month? Do you want me to show you what you've been doing this month? I looked at Song Chuxia and smiled lightly. "Miss Song, I'm also very curious to hear what secrets you, a stranger, want to reveal about me to my friend." Xia Heng took a step forward. "Pei-ku, don't go too far. Why bring Chuxia into our affairs? You bullied Chuxia in my office and slapped her face swollen. Shouldn't you apologize?" This accusation was even more explosive than the previous one. Xia Heng said, seemingly compassionately, "Chuxia has been heartbroken these days. She's only here today to hear your apology. Just apologize to her." I looked at the two of them expressionlessly. Truly, there's no limit to how shameless some people can be. 5. The banquet hall was in an uproar. In such a Vanity Fair, there were plenty of people eager to watch the drama, especially since this matter involved two well-known young talents in the industry. It was sure to attract attention in both the financial and gossip sections. "Lawyer Zhang is stealing someone's partner. Mr. Xia has been cuckolded." Vice President Pei looks weak and delicate, but she's actually so violent. Fortunately, Mr. Xia exposed Pei's true face regardless of his own reputation. Otherwise, if this vixen in the industry were let loose, who knows how many companies she would harm. For someone who wants to stay in society, such rumors are enough to destroy a person or a company. When Song Chuxia pretended to look pitiful and lowered her head, I straightened my back and smiled. Mr. Xia, when we were still in a relationship, you were flirting with Song Chuxia. Even after she slandered me, you still protected her. People who didn't know might think she was your girlfriend. I slightly turned my head to face Song Chuxia. Miss Song, did it feel good to order around the man I no longer want this past month? How about this? I don't need any compensation, just bow to me, and I won't pursue the matter of you being the mistress. Xia Heng's expression changed abruptly. As a powerful figure who had dominated the industry for many years in his previous life, his imposing manner silenced everyone around. Song Chuxia stood beside him, holding his arm, looking tearful. Kiki, what are you saying? I know you don't like me. But even if you bully me, why do you have to treat your own boyfriend like this? Xia Heng beside her looked pained and said impatiently, Kiki, if you've done something wrong, you should apologize, but considering it was a misunderstanding, we won't pursue it for now. As long as lawyer Zhang can help Chuxia, we'll let this matter go. Ah, so this was their plan, knowing that it would take a long time to get Zhang Yang's help through normal channels, and since I had clearly refused to assist, they used this method to create a scene at the law firm's anniversary celebration, forcing Zhang Yang to downplay the matter and tie him to their cause. I maintained a smile, calmly took out my phone, turned the volume to the maximum, and played a recording on the spot. Old Xia, sister-in-law isn't here today, and sister-in-law's family is in trouble. You can take care of her without holding back. Another person chimed in. Who's the elder and who's the younger isn't certain yet, right? Old Xia, ha ha ha. Xia Heng chuckled. Don't talk nonsense. Don't say such things in front of Pei Ku, she has a bad temper, and don't let Chuxia hear it, she'll be sad. The others agreed. We definitely know that, it's just that neither of the sisters-in-law is here. Xia Heng stared at me intently. When did you record this? I put away my phone. Guess, in my previous life, I didn't guard against them at all. I respected and loved Xia Heng deeply. Even though I was sometimes annoyed by Xia Heng's excessive attention to Song Chuxia, in my heart, he was always the person I trusted the most, but every time I complained, Xia Heng would use PUA on me. Chuxia is just a bit willful, but she has a good heart. It's really too much of you to think this way. Then he would ignore me for several days, claiming it was for me to reflect. I would finally break down under his cold treatment and apologize forwardly. At that time, I saw him through rose-colored glasses. I had followed him since graduation, although there were some twists and turns. Reaching where we were now, I respected and admired him both in work and in thought. His occasional tenderness also made me fall deeply in love, making me feel that it was extremely rare for such a domineering CEO to spare some attention for me besides work, which was enough to prove my importance in his life. Back then, with little experience, I always thought that was just his personality, that he was a workaholic who gave all his tenderness to me besides work. It wasn't until I saw Song Chuxia that I realized, Xia Heng wasn't born cold-hearted, it was just that I wasn't the one he cared about. I once saw him get up early to make breakfast and deliver it to Song Chuxia's house, just because he was afraid she would have a stomachache from not eating properly. I also saw him anxiously cancel a meeting to pick up Song Chuxia on a rainy day when she was trapped while shopping outside and couldn't get back. I thought it was because he wanted to cooperate with the Song family and because of their classmate relationship. It wasn't until I saw that Song Chuxia's father owed a huge debt and was on the verge of bankruptcy, yet Xia Heng was still running around for her. And all his tenderness towards me was just because I could help Song Chuxia. In my previous life, I was always trapped in this trap woven in the name of love. I wondered why Xia Heng was sometimes cold and sometimes warm towards me and why he didn't stand firmly by my side when I complained. Only after being reborn did I understand. Not loving someone means simply not loving them. 6. With this recording and the chaos created by Xia Heng and Song Chuxia earlier, it was obvious to anyone with eyes that the old Xia in the recording was Xia Heng. The scene was silent for a moment, and then the whispers grew louder and louder. Even those who were a bit farther away couldn't hear clearly, but the people around them quickly pulled them aside and shared the news with excitement. Xia Heng and Song Chuxia lost all face. They didn't dare to mention anything else and left in a hurry. The situation was quickly turned around. Zhang Yang raised his glass and announced loudly, "I believe in Vice President Pei's character. For those of you here who have had business dealings with Vice President Pei, I'm sure you have your own judgment." The anniversary celebration ended without major incident, and my reputation wasn't maliciously spread. When it was just Zhang Yang and me, he finally said seriously, "Tell me the truth, what's really going on?" I immediately started complaining. Song Chuxia is Xia Heng's white moonlight. Maybe after being a young lady for too long, she's jealous of my smooth sailing. When she's down, she wants to smear me. I pretended to cry. It's bad enough that my ex-boyfriend doesn't believe me, and now my best friend is also questioning me. Zhang Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Alright, this matter is over for you. Just go about your business and ignore them from now on." I wasn't convinced. Why should it be over just like that? A cold smile curled up on Zhang Yang's usually serious face. They should think twice before trying to scheme against me. Let's see what they're capable of. Finally, I felt at ease. Offending me might cause some trouble, but offending lawyer Zhang would mean being completely crushed. I heard that the two of them still went to Zhang Yang's law firm later. I don't know what Zhang Yang said to them, but now they don't bother me anymore and even go out of their way when they see me. I don't care. In fact, I've started openly clashing with Song Chuxia. Didn't she say I bullied her? Since she and her parents didn't dare to live in their house openly, I arranged for people to keep watch. As soon as there was any movement, I would immediately notify their debt collectors. In a society ruled by law, debt collectors couldn't go too far, but it was enough to keep them in constant fear. Just thinking about it makes me want to eat a big bowl of rice. I even deliberately waited on her way to see her make a fool of herself. Song Chuxia looked at me with venomous eyes, but she still gritted her teeth and apologized with tears in her eyes. "Miss Pei, I'm sorry, I don't know what I did to offend you. Please spare me and my family." "Okay." I looked at her innocently. "Song Chuxia, do you have paranoia?" "I'm a law-abiding citizen. When I see something unfair, I just do a good deed." Song Chuxia was stunned. I raised my eyebrows. Did she think I didn't notice the video recording on her phone that she secretly started? I looked at her seriously and shook my head. "Song Chuxia, remember to call the police if you have any problems. Randomly accosting an ordinary citizen like me isn't a good idea. By the way, you can ask Xia Heng for help." Then I walked away proudly. It felt so good. Of course, Xia Heng wanted to help, but he was powerless. After all, he had just given me more than 10 million yuan. And the company was about to go public. He simply didn't dare to get involved in this mess. Unexpectedly, even though I didn't take the bait, Song Chuxia still had a trick up her sleeve. She posted a video online, of course, after some editing. First, it showed her distress from being chased by debt collectors, then her apology to me, and finally, my back as I walked away. At the end of the video, Song Chuxia's whole family appeared, crying and bowing. "We're very sorry about this matter. But we're also victims. We've been deceived out of all our money. We won't run away. We will definitely take responsibility. Please give us a chance to live a normal life." The vulnerable and crying beauty not only didn't let the setback defeat her but also showed courage in taking responsibility. Song Chuxia quickly gained a lot of attention. As for me, I was criticized by thousands of people. Netizens called me the vicious back and flooded my social media accounts with attacks. I didn't back down. The day after the public opinion fermented, I immediately released the complete, unedited video. Come on, did they really think I waited for her without making any preparations? I also added a paragraph at the end of the video. "I've been crying every day because of the harm she caused me. However, as a woman, I won't blame her. After all, some things are just a matter of coincidence and bad luck. I hope this matter ends here." Of course, it wouldn't end there. I'm waiting for them to make their next move. The public opinion reversed instantly. The hatred that was previously directed at me now rebounded onto Song Chuxia's family. Those who had been dragged into bankruptcy by them also came forward one after another to express their anger. Song Chuxia's family became like rats crossing the street, constantly on the run. Finally, Xia Heng couldn't sit still and came to find me. There were still half a month left before the company went public. I believed he must have come up with a story for Song Chuxia, otherwise she wouldn't have stayed out of the spotlight so far and avoided being linked to Xia Heng. "Kiki, I didn't think things through before. I didn't consider your feelings and failed to protect you, but you blocked all my contact information, and didn't you agree to help Chuxia in the first place?" "Kiki, I don't know why you've suddenly changed so much." Although he ended with what seemed like a question, he also put on a wronged expression. My anger instantly surged. As his employee, I worked hard and conscientiously. As his girlfriend, I took meticulous care of his daily life, always putting his feelings first. He said he didn't want too many disagreements between us at work, so I gradually delegated power from the core departments like marketing and R&D in my hands. He said Song Chuxia had helped him a lot in high school, so I showed her my care and didn't mind her occasional little caprices. I just wanted to live a stable and happy life with him, but what I got in return was double-faced betrayal and even framed me. Thinking of this, I didn't even want to maintain the basic decency between adults. I picked up the coffee on the table and splashed it at him. The people in the coffee shop were in an uproar. Before Xiaheng could react, I stepped forward, grabbed his tie, pulled him towards me, and slapped his face with both hands. His fair face immediately turned bright red. Strangely enough, the red marks on both sides were symmetrical, almost looking festive. I looked at Xiaheng and said, "You've been having an affair with Song Chuxia for a long time, right? Since you like her so much, why are you still with me? Could it be that she didn't fancy you, and you wanted to use me to work for you willingly? You're just as despicable as your selfish father." Xiaheng was originally so angry that he was about to lash out, but after hearing my last words, he could only stand there stiffly, unable to say a word. Xiaheng's father was good-looking and glib. When he was young, he abandoned Xiaheng and his mother and ran away with a rich woman. Xiaheng had always hated his father deeply. I pushed him hard back into his seat, then looked up at the people in the coffee shop and smiled. "Sorry. I'm just teaching this scumbag a lesson. I apologize for the disturbance. Put everyone's bills on this scumbag's tab. Don't be shy." Unable to bear the humiliation, after seeing the crowd clapping while sighing, Xiaheng could only slink away to pay the bill. I called the waiter to clean up and continued to drink my coffee. Remembering my previous life, I wasn't completely oblivious. There were many clues, but I just chose to turn a blind eye. The recording played at the previous banquet was made at one of their class reunions. I still had some work to do at the company that day and initially decided not to go, telling him to go alone. Later, I finished my work ahead of schedule, thinking that he might drink. I decided to pick him up. When I arrived, just as I was about to push the door open, I heard several people teasing inside. "Neither Vice President Pei nor Chuxia is coming today. What a pity." Due to my habit of dealing with clients in the market, I instinctively turned on the recording function on my phone when I heard such sensitive remarks. "Old Xia, sister-in-law isn't here today, and sister-in-law's family is in trouble. You can take care of her without holding back." Another person chimed in. "Who's the elder and who's the younger isn't certain yet, right, old Xia? Ha ha ha." I waited for a while before hearing Xiaheng chuckle. "Don't talk nonsense. Don't say such things in front of Pei Ku, she has a bad temper, and don't let Chuxia hear it, she'll be sad." The others agreed. "We definitely know that, it's just that neither of the sisters-in-law is here." "None of that is true." Xiaheng's tone was a bit strange. He didn't seem angry at all. Instead, there was even a hint of anticipation in his voice. The hand that was about to push the door slowly retracted. I wasn't sure if I should be angry. After all, before this, Xiaheng hadn't shown any special attention to other women, and he even denied it on this occasion. But I still felt uncomfortable. Looking back now, I realized that it was probably on this day that the news about Song Chuxia's father broke out, which was why she was absent from the gathering. I left quietly and stayed outside for a long time, listening to the recording over and over again. I told myself that it was just a bit of male banter. Xiaheng hadn't admitted anything. He just hadn't firmly denied it. I didn't stop listening until my phone ran out of battery, and then I drove home. I don't know when Xiaheng came back. After all, we didn't live together. During the year we were together, Xiaheng never once invited me to his place on his own initiative. He only stayed at my place occasionally. Xiaheng said he felt more at ease at my place. It wasn't until I saw a photo on Song Chuxia's Moments, which was taken at his home, when I asked tentatively. Xiaheng said it was just a casual gathering at his place after the party, and his classmates had insisted on coming over. I began to look at things with a more scrutinizing eye. I found lipstick in the passenger seat of Xiaheng's car, and the brand and shade were the ones Song Chuxia often used. Xiaheng said that after a party, he gave some people a ride home, and Song Chuxia was among them. She might have dropped it there and asked me to give it back to her next time I saw her. His attitude was so straightforward that I started to wonder if I was being too sensitive. Moreover, our wedding was on the agenda. If there was something wrong with Xiaheng's ability, there was no need for him to continue with the marriage. It wasn't until the eve of the wedding that I heard the two of them arguing. Song Chuxia said discontentedly, "You were the one who set the plan, now you want to back out." Xia Heng said irritably, "How could I back out? I'm just worried that this might affect our public image. We're already at this point. Is there any way back? Let me think about it. Don't act on your own." I was confused at the time and thought they were planning a surprise for me. Only now, looking back on these things, did I suddenly realize this was the truth, the baseless accusations against me, the sudden appearance of extreme fans, the hand that pushed me from behind. All these things pointed to the two of them not backing out. I wanted to laugh, but tears welled up first. When Zhang Yang arrived, I had just dried my tears, seeing my slightly red eyes. He sneered, still attached. I just silently took out my phone and showed him the content. As he was reading, Zhang Yang gradually sat up straight. After he finished reading, he asked cautiously, "What do you want to do?" I said softly, "I want him to regret ever meeting me." 9. After I resigned, I immediately invested in multiple industries and companies that would have great development in the future. The celebration banquet for Xia Heng's company's upcoming listing was held in a hotel that I had invested in. I was talking to the manager to get an update on this situation when I unexpectedly ran into Song Chuxia, who was dressed in all her finery. Gone were the previous embarrassment and fear. Song Chuxia now showed no signs of her former distress. After all, Zhang Yang wasn't the only good lawyer in the industry, and this case wasn't too difficult. As long as one was willing to spend money and put in the effort, it could be easily resolved. Not to mention with Xia Heng, who had been reborn. The reason he came to me before was probably because in the previous life, I was the one who solved the problem. He thought he could solve it easily this time and also smear me in the process. Pei Ke, do you think Xia Heng will still protect you? You bullied me for so long. Do you think I'm an easy target? I will return all the humiliation you gave me, and more. Song Chuxia bluffed a lot, but I just gave her a look as if she were crazy, then turned to the hotel manager and said, "Remember to screen guests in the future. Don't let people like her in, or others might get bitten and need rabies shots." Then, in front of her fierce glare, I left with a group of people. When I got home, as expected, I saw Xia Heng waiting at the door. I miscalculated. I've been so busy with various things recently that I forgot to move. Xia Heng silently followed me into the house, and we sat on the sofa, no longer holding back. Xia Heng said with certainty, "You've been reborn too, right?" I wasn't surprised that he could figure this out. After all, since I got the money, I hadn't tried to hide my actions. With such a drastic change in my attitude towards them and my preemptive investment in many industries that would thrive later, it wasn't hard for him to make the connection. "So what? You know my methods. Even when I was at my lowest, I didn't let you off easily. You'd better keep your good classmate in line and stop her from attacking me all the time." After hearing my admission, Xia Heng seemed to relax. "Kiki, I won't hold your previous actions against you. And you shouldn't interfere with what I'm going to do either." I looked at him warily. "What do you mean?" "I've already sorted out Chuxia's problem. I don't want you to target her anymore." I was confused. When did I target her? Today at the hotel. You not only insulted her but also stopped the preparations for the celebration banquet. Aren't you being a bit petty? It suddenly dawned on me. So that's what she told you. That was close. I thought he knew something more. Xia Heng looked at me helplessly. "I know you're still bitter about what happened in the previous life, but we just weren't meant to be. I only have eyes for Chuxia. I've already compensated you with money for what happened before. Stop making a fuss. There's no future for us." I looked at him in disgust. Since being reborn, I've been focused on my career, but since his rebirth, he's been obsessed with romance. I overestimated him. I stood up, opened the door, and motioned for him to leave. Not even wanting to say another word, Xia Heng sighed and got up to leave. When he was outside the door, he turned back as if he wanted to say something, but I slammed the door in his face. "I wasted my meal today. I feel like throwing up now." 10. There was still a week left before Xia Heng's company went public. Knowing that I was the major shareholder of the hotel, they changed to another one. The press releases were already in the works, and Song Chuxia was ready to ring the bell with Xia Heng. She even sent me a message. "Do you regret not holding on to Xia Heng? Let me tell you, Xia Heng has liked me since high school. I didn't expect he'd still be so infatuated with me after all these years. You were just an accident. All of this will ultimately be mine. Come to think of it, I really should thank you for all the hard work you did for me before. In the previous life, I rang the bell with Xia Heng." I'm sure Song Chuxia was seething with jealousy. Now, all of this was hers. The highlight of her life was about to come, and she was extremely proud. I didn't reply to any of her messages. Instead, I posted these messages online with the title "The founder of a listed company cheats and kicks out his partner." I also submitted all the evidence I had to the China Securities Regulatory Commission. Xia Heng's company's IPO process was suspended 2 days before the scheduled listing. He was taken away for investigation. The company's finance director was someone I had promoted. When I left, I didn't plan to do anything at first. After all, in the previous life, the company went public smoothly, and everyone made a fortune. Since I was the legal representative of the company, the finance director didn't want to mess with me. In this life, since I left early and the company's listing had nothing to do with me, the finance director, anticipating that he would also be kicked out, quickly made a copy of the relevant documents and sent them to me. That's when I realized why Xia Heng made me the legal representative in the previous life and why he was so eager to push for the IPO when the products weren't fully developed. His real goal was to raise money fraudulently. The so-called industry-leading product performance indicators and impressive financial statements were all inflated, and I, as the legal representative, was set up to take the fall. Remembering what he said to Song Chuxia on the eve of the wedding, I won't back out. My hatred burned even stronger. Xia Heng topped several trending topics, both in the financial and entertainment sections. In an interview with reporters, I said firmly, Song Chuxia meddled in my relationship with Xia Heng. As a woman, I originally didn't want to make things difficult for her, but she kept pressing me, constantly smearing me. She used misleading video edits to confuse the public and privately humiliated and slandered me. I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided to speak out. Regarding the issues with Xia Heng's company, after obtaining the evidence, I simply did what a responsible citizen should do. I hope everyone will focus more on the legality and compliance of this matter rather than on me personally. Thank you all. After that, I left with Zhang Yang's escort. I won't interfere in Xia Heng's affairs anymore. I'll leave everything to the law. He will receive a fair trial. And I will have an even brighter future. When I came out of the elevator, Song Chuxia suddenly rushed out and was about to stab me with a knife. I turned around, and the bodyguard behind me immediately stepped forward and kicked her flying. I quickly called the police. While waiting, I looked at the person who seemed crazy and said, "Do I look like such a stupid person?" I was indeed stupid in my previous life, but now I'm Nyo Kalu Peiku. Since Xia Heng was arrested and Song Chuxia went missing, I'd been on guard against her. Xia Heng wasn't surprised at all when I readily agreed to help him. After all, I've always put his needs first. And this, it seemed that Song Chuxia had also been reborn. Great, this would make the revenge even more satisfying. I looked down at her and said, "You forgot that even when I died in the previous life, you didn't have a good life either." She was so angry that her whole body trembled, and she pushed me away forcefully with her hand. She still had the knife in her hand, and I didn't ask the bodyguard to take it away. Song Chuxia was taken away by the arriving police, and I was also taken to the ambulance. She was charged with attempted murder. Lying in the hospital bed, I listened to Zhang Yang sitting beside me scolding, "Look at you, who am I?" Once she rushed out and tried to hurt you. She couldn't escape legal punishment. Why did you do something unnecessary? While eating the fruit, I directed Zhang Yang to continue peeling the apple and said, I know, I just wanted to make sure everything was foolproof. If Song Chuxia had just rushed out and didn't cause me any harm, she might have been released after being detained for 2 days, but stabbing me, and with the surveillance footage showing that she stabbed me on purpose, that's a completely different matter. Hearing my perfunctory words, Zhang Yang could only give up. When I was discharged from the hospital, I received a request from Xia Heng to meet me, and I went. Xia Heng looked much more haggard and was no longer as high-spirited as he was in the previous life. I looked at him indifferently and said, "I didn't expect you to still want to see me." Xia Heng smiled self-deprecatingly. "I didn't expect you to agree to come either. I just want to apologize to you. I'm sorry for so many things." "Oh, I know you did all this because you wanted me so much." Xia Heng took a deep breath and said with great patience, "If I say that I won't have any contact with Song Chuxia anymore, can you ask Zhang Yang to defend me? I will definitely change my ways and we can live a happy life together in the future." I regretted coming here. I smiled and, under Xia Heng's expectant gaze, said, "You really are pushing your luck. Who gave you the courage to think that I would still be infatuated with you?" A flower behind bars. The last time I asked you to leave, it was because I was afraid that I would vomit if I said one more word. Now I realize that I was wrong. Why should I make myself feel sick just to make you feel good? I'll tell you one last time clearly. Do you think you're worthy of being with me? I stood up and was about to leave, then quickly added, it's really hard for you to contact Song Chuxia now. After all, she's also in prison. As for where exactly, I don't know. I didn't bother to look at Xia Heng's devastated expression or care about his reaction upon hearing about Song Chuxia. These despicable people will surely be punished by the law, and I will also have a brighter future. Story 2. In my past life, I despised him immensely, yet unexpectedly, it was he who claimed my body and avenged me in the end. Upon my rebirth, with tears brimming in my eyes, I extended my arms toward him. Husband, hold me. His eyes burning red, he grasped my chin tightly. Say that again, and I'll give you my life. Obediently, I called out again, husband. In the next instant, he grabbed a fruit knife from the table and plunged it into his heart. I sat dazed in the hospital, completely stunned. I could never have dreamed that on the first day of my rebirth, my golden thigh would stab himself and end up in the emergency room. The rapid tapping of high heels echoed down the hallway. Before I could even look up, a harsh slap landed on my face. The crisp sound resonated unusually clearly through the empty corridor. The sudden slap turned my head to the side, numbing half of my face instantly. Ching ching. If anything happens to Li Yan this time, you'll join him in death. I opened my mouth, the movement pulling at my cheek, causing me to gasp in pain. The woman before me glared fiercely, her high heels clicking as she stood firm in front of the emergency room, touching my swollen cheek. I thought of the emaciated figure from my past life tormented by illness and slightly curled my lips. Such strength indicated she was still in good health. Late at night, the red light outside the emergency room finally went off, and the doctor, supported by others, walked out. The surgery was successful. The knife merely grazed the heart without piercing it. He should wake by tomorrow morning if all goes well tonight. The pale-faced man, eyes tightly shut, was wheeled past me to the intensive care unit. Finally having a moment, Mrs. Fu glanced at me and remarked, don't you hurry home and change out of those clothes. They're bad luck. I was still in my home sleepwear, and after several hours, the blood that had splashed on it had dried, leaving dark red stains. As the night grew colder, I shivered and said, I'll just find something to wear in a bit. Mom, you should go home to rest. I'll stay here tonight, Mrs. Fu seemed surprised when I called her mom, raising an eyebrow. Really, it rolls off your tongue quite easily, letting you stay here tonight. Can Li Yan even see tomorrow's sun? Considering my past foolish actions, I indeed had no credibility with Mrs. Fu. Following her suggestion, I changed my clothes and hurried back to the hospital. Mrs. Fu said little upon my return, lying down on the bed provided for family members. I climbed onto another bed, resting my head against the headboard and closing my eyes. My dreams were chaotic, a closed door one moment, a raging fire the next, ending with the image of the man covered in blood, his eyes serene yet wild. Startled awake, I took a deep breath to calm my racing heart. After a few breaths, I gently got off the bed and sat on a chair outside the intensive care unit, staring blankly, too, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the glass. Fu Lian was moved from the intensive care unit to a regular ward. I washed my face in the restroom, and by the time I returned, Fu Lian was awake, listening to Mrs. Fu prattle on about something. Hearing my approach, his obsidian-like eyes turned to meet mine, filled with an indecipherable emotion. Ian, I said, quickly walking over to sit by the bed, in front of Mrs. Fu. I find it really hard to call you husband. Fu Larian's eyes were fixed on me, and he hummed lightly in response. Afterwards, an eerie silence fell over the hospital room. Mom, he began, his voice hoarse, you should go back first. His mother glared at him reproachfully and stormed out with the words, just wait for her to be the death of you. Once she left, it was just Fu Larian and me, lost for words. I fiddled with my sleeve and noticed his lips were chapped. I tried to start a conversation. Husband, are you thirsty? Would you like some water? I stood up, poured a cup of warm water, and took a cotton swab, carefully dabbing his lips with the water. As I applied the water, I rambled, the doctor said you can't drink water yet, just bear with it a little longer. When you can, I'll help you drink. Fu Larian's gaze stayed on my lips, suddenly asking, why did you call emergency services? He suddenly opened his mouth, almost causing the cotton swab to poke him, startling me. What? His tone was mild. Haven't you always wanted me dead? This time you had your chance. If it weren't for the fact that he was injured, I would have smacked him on the head. What does he mean, wanting him dead? I'm not a psychopath. why would I want him dead, though I did say that once. It was when he had me locked up and I was speaking out of frustration. And now he's bringing up old grievances. He didn't ask further. Slightly turned his head away from my hand, and closed his eyes. Husband, I put down the cotton swab and glass, sat beside the bed. I know I've been too much in the past, but I swear I won't be anymore. If I ever treat you like that again, may lightning strike me dead. Before I could finish, a large hand covered my mouth, stopping my words. His movement seemed to strain his wound, his eyebrows furrowing slightly. I've told you. My life is yours to command. I pulled his hand away, earnestly saying, I really won't do it again. 3. During the night, I stayed by Fu Larian's bedside. As the anesthesia wore off, the pain from his wounds covered his forehead with dense sweat. I prepared a basin of water and gently wiped the sweat from his forehead with a damp towel, smoothing his furrowed brows as he slept. I stood up to dispose of the water when suddenly my hand was grasped. Ching-ching. Fu Larian clutched my hand tightly, his voice full of pain. I sat back down, gripping his hand in return. His palm was broad and rough, completely enveloping mine, holding on so tightly that my fingertips turned white. Loving me must be painful, huh? I chuckled self-deprecatingly, utterly foolish, unable to see people clearly, always causing trouble. I wonder what he really likes about me. Do I like him? Maybe I do. After all, there's no one else in this world who would lay down their life for me. But love, it's hard to call it love. I'll treat him well. Maybe even willing to give my life for him, but I know it's not love, it's just compensation. I pressed his hand against my face, looking at his features in the play of light and shadow, and whispered softly, Ian, I will try my best to love you, he said, his eyelashes quivering slightly in the night. It must be said, Fu Lian's recovery ability was remarkably strong, despite a stab wound that was nearly fatal. He was mostly healed in just half a month. Those 2 weeks passed peacefully. I brought a few sets of clothes from home and stayed at the hospital to take care of Fu Lian. Although I say take care, I wasn't much help really. It was a private hospital, and the doctors and nurses did everything that needed to be done. All I could do was bring water, deliver meals, and keep him company. Fu's mother came to visit a few times, but each time, her cold-faced son sent her away. I figured if this kept up, I might be able to get out for a bit of fresh air soon, back at home. I sat on the sofa and let out a long sigh of relief. Although the hospital beds were soft, nothing beat the comfort of home. Buzz, buzz, the phone on the table vibrated twice, and Fu Lian and I both looked over. I felt him tense up momentarily, so I leaned over to kiss his chin and, right in front of him, unlocked the phone. The glaring message on the screen nearly gave me a heart attack. Lin, ching-ching. It's been so long since we last met. I miss you. Let's meet. The breathing of the person next to me hitched, followed by his chest heaving twice. Shoot, I forgot to block him. I quickly and decisively dragged the contact into the blacklist, flipped the phone over, and turned to kiss him. Fu Lian slightly turned his head, and the kiss meant for his lips landed on his cheek instead. Why not agree to it? He asked, his tone light but his fists clenched tightly at his side. Clearly, he didn't want me to go, yet he acted as if it didn't matter to him. If I really went, I probably wouldn't be able to leave the bedroom for a month. How awkward, I sighed, prying open his clenched hand. Fresh pinch marks were clearly visible on his open palm. Seeing the deep imprints, I felt irrationally angry. Why are you pinching yourself? I poked at his palm. His hand closed, enveloping mine completely. He looked down, his eyes hiding his emotions, and murmured, it won't happen again. People say man proposes, God disposes. And it turned out I hadn't expected Lin to actually dare to show up at my doorstep. After having breakfast with Fu Lian, I went out to water the flowers in the yard. Just as I was about to head back inside, I heard an annoying voice. Ching-ching, why did you block me? Are you angry that I haven't contacted you for so many days? I walked forward without turning back, letting his words pass by me like wind. Ching-ching. Are you being threatened by Fu Lian? Come out. I'll take you away from him. Yelling in front of Fu Lian's house. Was he asking for trouble? If he wanted to die, he shouldn't drag me into it. I turned around emotionlessly and looked at him. Sir, if it's not too much trouble, could you please leave my doorstep? My husband and I are very happy together, so you don't need to worry. Ching-ching. Tired of listening to him, I quickly stepped inside. As I opened the door, I froze. The floor inside was covered with broken ceramics. And Fu Lian stood in the center, his hands bloody, his eyes bloodshot. The butler, Uncle Li, immediately came to my side as I entered. Madam, call the doctor. I dropped the command and stepped over the broken ceramics towards Fu Lian. The man who had been raging just moments ago rushed over as my foot almost touched a shard and scooped me up, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Half an hour later, Fu Lian leaned on the sofa. His eyes half closed as the doctor treated the wounds on his feet. The doctor carefully extracted tiny porcelain shards from the flesh using tweezers, each piece pulling down droplets of blood that fell to the floor. The person on the sofa wore a blank expression, not even moving an eyebrow, as if the bloodied feet weren't his. After treating the foot injuries, the doctor turned to clean the less severe wounds on the hands. After a while, the doctor stood up and advised, "Be careful with your hands and feet in the next few days, try not to exert any force." Uncle Lee led the doctor out, leaving only Fu Larian and me alone in the vast living room. The man looked up at me, a hint of red in the corner of his eyes, his voice hoarse. "Ching Ching, stay away from him." I sighed, sat beside him, and poked his unharmed forearm, feeling a bit gloomy. "Fu Larian, do you trust me?" Fu Larian seemed not to hear what I was saying, just staring intently at me as if I might vanish into thin air, stubbornly repeating his words. "Ching Ching, stay away from him, he will harm you." I leaned my forehead against his, gently rubbing it, and promised, "I won't meet him again." "Okay, I won't meet him again, but I will still seek the vengeance I am owed, whatever debts he owes me from past and present lives. I intend to recover them, with interest." It was strange that Fu Larian, despite his anger that day, didn't confine me or anything. With old wounds unhealed and new ones added, his complexion was much worse. The housekeeper felt sorry for him and made nourishing soups every day, but while he didn't improve much, I ended up getting plumper. After overeating soup and hardly touching dinner, I woke up in the middle of the night starving. After tossing and turning in bed, I finally got up to find something to eat in the kitchen. Opening my door, I faintly heard voices. Tiptoeing to Fu Larian's door, I saw it was slightly ajar, and voices filtered through the gap. Great. Checking my phone, it was 1 in the morning, and here he was staying up late despite being ill. I waited outside his door, ready to confront him once he finished his call. Half an hour later, groggy and sleepy, the room finally fell silent. I slapped my face to wake up, stood, and burst through the door. The room was dark, lit only by moonlight streaming through the uncurtained window, casting a faint glow. The figure stood by the window, bathed in soft moonlight, his silhouette hazy. Such a beautiful scene it was, but how could you, with feet full of wounds, stand on the ground? My anger surged instantly. With a snap, I turned on the light, flooding the room with brightness. Then, I got even angrier. Blood-stained bandages were carelessly thrown on the table, and the man, wearing a coat, stood barefoot on the cold floor. Seeing me enter, a rare look of surprise crossed his face. "Fu Larian, do you not care about your feet anymore?" I yelled at him, running over to drag him back to bed, puffing my cheeks. I stood by the bed glaring at him furiously. The person on the bed reached out with slender fingers, carefully hooking my hand hanging by my side. "Ching Ching, don't be angry." A strange feeling intensified inside me. Who is Fu Larian? Domineering, crazy, with extreme possessiveness and controlling desires, often forcing confinement in a dark room. Even now, Fu Larian was undeniably mad, but when it comes to himself, he is ruthlessly harsh, never going easy on himself when it comes to self-inflicted harm. Towards me, however, he's incredibly humble. 8. I gently took his hand and knelt in front of him, my voice softening uncontrollably. "Honey, please take care of yourself, it hurts me to see you like this." Fu Larian just looked down at our clasped hands, silent. I wasn't going to give up without a response, so I shook his hand coquettishly and pleaded, "Please." After a while, just when I thought he was going to remain silent again, Fu Larian quietly hummed an affirmation. Hearing his response, I instantly beamed with joy. I stood up, fetched the first aid kit, and came back. Fu Larian sat obediently by the bed like a good child, letting me dress his wounds as I directed. It turned out that bandaging should really be left to the professionals. After much fussing, I ended up wrapping Fu Larian like a mummy. Looking at his hand wrapped up like a bun, I awkwardly smiled. "Just bear with it for one night, and we'll have the doctor rewrap it tomorrow." Fu Larian seemed quite satisfied with his freshly minted appearance, examining his bandaged limbs before commenting, "Pretty good." Since the victim himself said so, I didn't argue. I put the first aid kit back in its place and prepared to head to my room to rest. Just as I was about to leave, I caught a glimpse of Fu Larian still sitting by the bed. On impulse, I walked back to him. "How about I stay in your room tonight to make sure you don't do anything reckless?" Fu Larian suddenly looked at me, something flickering in his eyes. He clearly wanted me to stay, yet he said, "Don't force yourself. I won't do anything even if you're not here." At that moment, Fu Larian was like a child who desperately wants a candy but insists he doesn't. Maybe these days, my courage had been bolstered by Fu Larian, and I playfully decided to go along with his words, nodding. "Oh, in that case, I'll leave." With that, I turned and headed towards the door. Fu Larian watched me leave without turning back, his eyes dimming instantly, a self-mocking smile playing on his lips. Seeing Fu Larian like this, my heart unexpectedly clenched. I reached the barely closed door, shut it, and winked at him under his puzzled gaze. "All right, get ready to sleep, I'll stay and keep you company." I initially intended to make do with the sofa in the room for the night, but Fu Larian, after getting into bed, consciously made space for me and looked puzzled when I hesitated to join him. All right, my words might have carried some ambiguity. 9. We were husband and wife after all. Sharing a bed wasn't strange, especially since a sofa is nowhere near as comfortable as a bed. With that thought, I didn't hesitate and climbed into bed, turning off the light to sleep. It was the middle of the night, and after all that fuss, I was quickly enveloped by drowsiness. Within minutes of lying down, my consciousness blurred. In a haze, I felt the person beside me turn over, and a strong, lean arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer to him. After that, I lost consciousness. The next day, I woke up gasping for air, convinced I would have suffocated if I had woken just 2 seconds later. I struggled to lift my head from Fu Larian's chest, taking a few deep breaths of fresh air before I felt better. Despite the commotion, Fu Larian didn't wake up. His arm was still around my waist, preventing me from getting up, and the earlier fuss had chased away any sleepiness. I lay there in his arms, staring blankly, until something caught my eye and I fixed my gaze on it. Streams of light filtered through the gaps in the curtains, casting luminous marks on his face that added a touch of sanctity. His eyes were closed, his expression relaxed, a state I had never seen him in before. It seemed as though this was the first time we shared a bed. Initially, when the Lin family's financial chain broke, I was sold to Fu Lian by my parents to secure funds. It was repulsive to even share a meal with him at the same table, let alone sleep in the same bed. I withdrew my hand and poked Fu Lian's cheek. Surprisingly, it felt good, so I couldn't resist poking him a couple more times. His long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings, prompting me to stop immediately. Even my breathing lightened. Seeing he didn't wake, I reached out again, this time toying with his eyelashes. As I fiddled, I marveled at how long his eyelashes were. Eventually, the person beside me woke up, his eyes still slightly foggy as he rubbed his forehead against mine before burying his face into my neck. When he looked up again, his gaze had cleared. After breakfast, I had the doctor come over to redress Fu Lian's wounds. This time, I squatted nearby and watched carefully, trying to learn the doctor's technique. While watching, I blurted out, "Should I buy you a wheelchair so you don't have to walk?" Fu Lian, lifting his foot for the doctor to wrap, dismissed my suggestion without even looking up. Given his condition, going to the office was out of the question, but such a large company couldn't just be neglected every day. After the doctor left, Fu Lian went to the study to handle work. Halfway through, I went up to bring him water and saw his hand holding the pen slightly bleeding through the bandage. My mouth worked faster than my brain, blurting out, "Should I help you review the documents?" It was only after speaking that I realized the documents might contain confidential company secrets, not meant for casual viewing. I quickly added, "Your hand." Before I could explain, Fu Lian neatly put down his pen and leaned back in his chair. All right. Then, things turned into me sitting in the office chair reviewing documents while Fu Lian sat beside watching me. I majored in jewelry design with a minor in business during college. Honestly, I wasn't interested in jewelry design. I had initially chosen to study business for my college application, but my parents altered my choice without my consent, claiming, "Why study business? Jewelry design is so much better. Look at other daughters, all studying design." At that time, I couldn't resist, and the only option was to minor in business at university. Even with some business education, I had never really practiced it, so handling documents was still somewhat uncertain. With each document processed, I had to consult Fu Lian's opinion. Though I was the one processing, it was still his intellect at work, though he seemed to enjoy it, even smiling. Gradually, I got the hang of it, no longer needing to consult him for every document, only for those of significant importance. Time quietly passed, and as I laid down the last document, I took a deep breath. "Just need your signature on these." Fu Lian handed me a glass of water. You can sign them. I took a sip and replied, hey, I know this much. I don't have the authority, my signature won't count. You do, you gave me shares. Fu Lian's casual remark made me jump up from the office chair. The instigator, Fu Lian, calmly reached for the cup I had placed on the desk and took a sip, his gaze seeming to ask, what's wrong with that? It's very wrong. Okay. I frantically went back and forth with Fu Lian, employing both soft and hard tactics. Through a combination of coercion and enticement, they managed to pry the whole story from him. The share transfer document was tucked within the prenuptial agreement. Before the wedding, my parents presented me with a stack of documents and pressured me into signing them. At that time, having failed to escape, I felt utterly defeated and resigned to my fate, going through the motions like a zombie, doing whatever they asked of me. I didn't even bother to look through the documents they wanted me to sign. I just signed my name directly. As for my parents, they were eager to be rid of me and didn't care that I was signing what was essentially a contract of servitude. So, did these shares just inadvertently end up in my pocket? I was speechless and choked up. Did you take a course in how to be a dominant CEO or something? Clearly, Fu Lian had no idea what how to be a dominant CEO was. Seeing his puzzled expression, I took the time to explain it to him properly. After my explanation, Fu Lian seemed even more confused. This is supposed to be marital shared property. Alright, I give up. This person is so naive. It's hard to believe he grew up in the wealthy elite, in this circle, which marriage isn't bound by a myriad of prenuptial agreements, with each party reluctant to give even a penny more than necessary. Marital shared property, that doesn't exist here, since the shares have already been given to me. I'm not going to make a fuss about giving them back. Let's just say they're temporarily staying with me until he needs them back. I glanced at the time, quickly signed the documents, and pulled Fu Lian downstairs for lunch. 12. After eating and feeling full, I wasn't in the mood for a nap just yet, so I settled on the living room sofa and browsed my phone for a while. Fu Lian sat beside me, reading a book. The time spent lounging always made me feel content. I kicked off my slippers and curled up on the sofa, scrolling through short videos. And eventually, I leaned against Fu Lian's shoulder. Fu Lian just felt a weight on his shoulder, as the person beside him leaned back naturally, using him as a support. I didn't know what he was scrolling through, but his pale, delicate feet tapped rhythmically on the sofa. Fu Lian silently curled the corners of his mouth, suppressing the urge to pull me into his arms, and adjusted his sitting position to make me more comfortable. Take it slow, he told himself, don't scare her off. One day,